as you probably all have heard the news, right? Disney Plus comes out, they have a bunch of technical issues right out of the gate. Well, okay, yeah, streaming to a lot of people simultaneously is super hard. I mean, what'd you say, it was like 4.8 million?
Concurrent.
I mean, that's a crazy number of people wanting content at the same time. So looking back on that history and where you're at now, what would you say are maybe like, what's the big technical challenge that you guys see Max facing, sort of building out a platform that can do all of that really well?
Yeah, I think there's a few technical challenges that we have ahead of us. Number one, we're setting up a global platform. And so HBO, for the most part, had been, for HBO Go and Now, it was domestically distributed. There were incarnations of HBO Go and Now globally, but they were really separate, kind of siloed experiences. The current strategy and technical strategy that we're on right now is a singular global platform. And so we're working on developing the technology to support a singular globalized platform. Again, we'll work with our counterparts around the globe to make sure it's regionalized and localized and all the appropriate regulatory currency matters are dealt with, and privacy and data. All those things are some of the technical complexities that we have to build out as it relates to a global platform. The addition is there's some new capabilities that we haven't had before. So user profiles, which we announced at Investor Day. We are going to have profile-based kind of audiences. And so we need to build out some of those new capabilities and services, and those have the opportunity for some sort of risk and issue that we're going to have to address.
Sure. Now, I mean, and obviously, it would seem, to most people that there are some, like, Me Too, some necessary table stakes for any platform like this, right? So profiles would kind of be like, that would seem like one of those. Like,
absolutely.
Hey, Hulu has profiles, Disney Plus has profiles, Netflix has profiles. Obviously, HBO has such a rich history and content. What would you say are some of the ways that you think HBO Max is going to differentiate from, those other competitors besides just the content? Because obviously there's going to be content that you can't get anywhere else but HBO Max.
Absolutely. For sure, we're going to have some of the very best content on the planet. But how do we allow customers to easily find and access that content? And so we're rolling out something called Curated by Humans. And so, yes, there are going to be recommendations and algorithm-based information that will use the underlying data that we know about, but we also think it's really powerful and important to have a human curation approach to it. And so we're going to have this notion of it's content about content. And you sort of have to kind of see it to understand it, but we're going to actually be working with celebrities and influencers, and they're going to help us tell the stories about their content experience as they were consuming those shows and movies, and we're actually going to be putting that up as a part of the offering. And so it'll be there in the goodness of time. It may not be there exactly at launch, but in the goodness of time, we're going to have a human curation story about how, to find content. And part of it is because I think consumers are a little bit tired of the fact that, hey, how did this recommendation get to me? Especially when you're watching with other family members on a given profile, you may see things that weren't necessarily appropriate to you. And so we think having this idea of a human curation and a sort of set of recommendations that you can start to follow. So this brings me to the second feature and capability, which is what we're calling co-viewing. And it's this idea where when you do have families, like in my household, I have 3 children, and we do watch together. And so how do we ensure that my recommendations or my wife's recommendations aren't necessarily confused because we're watching content with our 9-year-old or our 12-year-old. And so what we're doing is we're developing a feature around co-viewing so that we can create a unique set of recommended content for those kind of co-viewing conditions. And we can also ensure that we know who's watching so that when we do come up with those set of recommendations, they're appropriate to the fact that this is a co-viewing experience and not something that was done individually. And so those are two of sort of the capabilities and ways that we're going to allow consumers really to find content not in 9 minutes, but hopefully in 90 seconds.